Hi, hello. Welcome back to Emily A to Z. My name is Emily. Welcome to another episode of me on my bedroom floor. I'm sick. But I'm here because I've made a commitment and a schedule and I'm trying to keep it. Please ignore the clothes that still need to be donated. It's cold, it's winter, I'm sick. Oh. Get a water. Drink break. But for real, what are we doing? Hopefully, this is episode 1 of a year-long series. This is episode 1 of Stitchy Sunday, where I am aiming to release a video every Sunday that is stitch related, cross-stitch related. Whether it's going over plans, whether it's showing you my whips, whether it's just talking about stuff, I hope to have something every Sunday that is stitchy. And for episode 1 this Sunday, it is July 5th, I'm just going to go over Magical Stitches plans. I think that's really helpful, and if you're in Magical Stitches, great, this is definitely for you. If you are thinking about joining Magical Stitches and you haven't joined yet, maybe this will help solidify your decision. But I just want to get back into talking about stitchy stuff. I haven't talked about stitchy stuff in a while, so we're gonna talk about much. It didn't help. I should just leave my hands out of my hair. It's fine. Want to talk about what's going on in Magical Stitches, the events we have this year, and other plans that I have, I guess, some stitchy goals. They're not that lofty, they're not that crazy, and on a different week, I will show you my whips that I am going to be working on. I only have like 8, so small number, but that's okay. So let's jump right into Magical Stitches. It is a Facebook run group, run by me. It is not a Facebook run group. It is a group on Facebook run by me. It was originally run by Vicky from Reading and Stitching, lovely woman, along with Sammy from Sammy J Stitches. They kind of worked together. It was Vicky's brainchild. I've been a part of it since Harry Potter, and it has been passed on to me, and now I run the group. Vicky decided to step back from it a couple years ago, 2 years ago, I guess now. Last year was my first year running it. This is my second year running it. So yeah, crazy, I know. I'm still learning, I'm still getting there, and I think I finally have kind of a system locked into place. We'll see. So every month, every year, there is a theme or a series of books that we will read, and there will be corresponding stitchy challenges related to those books all year long. This year, I chose the series, A Series of Unfortunate Events, written by Lemony Snicket. There are 13 books in total. We will read a book a month, every single month of the year, except for January and February. January and February will both have a book and a half, so to speak, because the first couple books are rather short. So in January, the book you will read the first book, The Bad Beginning, and the first half of the second book, The Reptile Room. February, we will pick up right where we left off, read the second half of The Reptile Room, and then read the entirety of the third book, The Wide Window. After that, everything will then fall in order. Each month will have a single book. So in March, it will be the fourth book, The Miserable Mill, and so on and so forth. Whew. So that's the basic foundation. Now, along with that, so we have our book, there's also a reading challenge. I've gone over that in my reading video where, along with the quote unquote book of the month, as I kind of refer to it as, I don't like to say required reading, because that nothing is required in this group. It is all completely optional how much you jump in or abstain from. It is all up to you. And I really like to highlight that because I know I, for one, get really bogged down sometimes, and I don't want anyone to feel that way. So, sorry, my dogs licked my face recently, and I thought I got all of their slobber off my glasses. I guess I didn't. I got myself cleaned. Obviously, though, if you read the books, it does kind of give you insight into the events and to the overall theme of the year. Everything is connected, but nothing is required. So I never say required reading. I always say the book of the month kind of thing. So every month, whatever the book of the month is, there will be monthly stitching prompts that directly relate / come from the book of the month. So let's just go over those right now. We've got the monthly book. So in January this month, we are reading The Bad Beginning and the first half of The Reptile Room. And every month I try to have anywhere between 15 to 20, usually right at 15 prompts, sometimes more, sometimes less. But there will always be a minimum of 15, no more than 20 prompts each month, because I don't want to overwhelm anyone. It's supposed to be a challenge, but it's not supposed to be like stupid hard, right? So there are 16 prompts for the month of January. We'll go over them really, really quickly. And yeah. So every task has a requirement of 200 stitches. There will be a task. You pick out of your whips what fits it, and you do the required stitching. And that number is 200 stitches. Now, if you have a whip, you don't have any whips that fit, you can choose to stitch on your oldest whip that you still have for the same amount of stitches, for 200 stitches. The thought process there is you don't have something that works, but you're making up for it by pulling out that old whip. Usually we all have that oldest whip that is just lingering, and it's to kind of help us get through our backlog, right? Go through, take care of that old whip and stitch on it. So it's the same amount. Now, if you don't have a whip that works, and or you don't want to work on it, and you don't want to work on your oldest whip, there is an option. This is kind of considered the penalty option, which is to stitch on whatever you want for an additional 100 stitches, meaning 300 stitches total. That's the price you pay for doing whatever you want. And you have to state, I'm doing whatever I want, kind of thing. So let's go through it and give us some examples. Our first prompt is, I'm not going to go into every single detail because that would take us too long. I'm just going to tell you what the prompt is. Plus, they're kind of spoilery. If you haven't read the books yet, I don't want to spoil anything. But the first stitch, we're meeting our characters, we're meeting Violet. So you're gonna stitch on a whip that represents her in some way. You need something that has a girl on it or has some sort of device or machine, and that is intentionally vague. But a device or machine is anything that has moving parts, not necessarily electronic, but moving parts, and is potentially an invention of some kind. I will accept humans, I will accept female shapes, whatever, be creative. Then the second is Klaus, and you need to stitch on a whip that has a boy or has books on it. That's very straightforward. Then the youngest, of course, is Sunny, and you need to stitch on a whip that has a baby or with something that bites, because babies bite and Sunny particularly bites. Now that one, basically everything alive bites, so that is also very easy. Think animals, think people, like that one is very open. Now say though we did that and you're like, I don't have anything, or I don't want to do that. That's where you would do whatever you want for 300 stitches. Moving on, we need to stitch on something that has a fire or a beach scene. Those are very straightforward. Then number 5 is to stitch on a whip with eyes. Now that could be something that has just a singular eye. I don't know, maybe that's out there. There are a couple weird kind of gothic things that have like eyes in them that is part of like a butterfly or a flower. But basically anything that has a face, anything that has an animal, those have eyes. Like, there you go. Then we have number 6, which is to stitch on a whip that features a kitchen scene or has food items. There's typically 2 things you can stitch on per prompt. I'm usually try to give a range. I don't normally say like it has to be this one thing, and if I do, it's very clear. So this one, food, very open. That can be fruits, vegetables, a plate, a cup, that has stuff on it, not just a plate or a cup, or something that is very clearly meant to be in a kitchen. That would be your plates and your cups, or has the word kitchen on it, things like that. Could be a room that actually has a kitchen in it. Number 7, you need to stitch on a whip where the title either starts with the letter M or the designer's name starts with the letter M. We have a lot of repeating letters in this series, and that will come up again in the future, but this is the letter M, so magic, mushrooms, I'm thinking words like that, where if you've got, do I have anything that currently has an M? I don't think so, but you know, Mirabilia, or I'm blanking, because of course right now I'm blanking, but look at your stash, look what you've got, and if it fits, it fits. Then number 8 is to stitch on a whip that is based off of a TV show, play, or something visual. It cannot be based off of a movie, and you'll see why later. But so those would be, that's your Outlander, that's your Doctor Who, things like this. Yes, I know they can also be books, but if it is directly coming from the TV show, go for it. The Star Trek TV show, anything with what's popular. Yellow Jackets is popular. I saw a Yellow Jackets whip. Or one of my favorite shows that's scary is Hannibal, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, there's so many fandoms out there. If you have a whip that is based off of a TV show, this is your time, pull it out. Number 9, we have that you need to stitch on a wedding sampler, a piece that you meant to give as a wedding gift, or a whip that has a wedding scene. Not everyone is stitching a wedding sampler. I'm not. Not every person is stitching a gift that they want to give for a wedding. But if it has a bride and groom on it, if it has something that you can say this is a wedding, go for it. That one might be a little tricky. That's where you might be pulling out your oldest whip or just saying, screw you, Emily, I'm doing whatever I want. And then our last prompt for book 1 is number 10, and that is that this one actually is not a stitch count. This is not you need to find something in a whip. This is a physical challenge, which I don't think we've ever done, and I thought it would be funny. There's a whole thing about dominant hands in book 1, so I want you to use your non-dominant hand and stitch with that instead. Just give it a try for a couple minutes and just show what you did. If anything, tell us. I want a comment saying that you did it and like how you felt about it is what I'm looking for here. So like, for example, I am a left-handed stitcher. I do like to stitch two-handed. I will put my left hand on the bottom and I will use my right hand on top. For me, I need to switch that arrangement. I need to put my right hand on the bottom and my left hand on top, and I can already tell this is gonna be weird. And that's the point. I want you to do something that feels weird. Then the last 6 prompts all come from our second book, which is The Reptile Room. Prompt number 11 is a color prompt. I try not to do these too often, but they do come up. And if it is a color prompt, it is where I want you to stitch in a specific color. So these are significantly lower. Any color prompt is only ever worth 100 stitches, because I know sometimes it's difficult to stitch in that color. If you choose not to do it, it still counts as 200 stitches on your oldest whip, 300 if you say screw you, I don't want to do it. This one's got a mix though. It's either a color for 100 stitches, or you find an item, stitch on the whip for 200. If you're doing that, it's apples. You need to stitch on a whip that has apples for 200. If you don't have that and you have the color, you either need to do, or you do 100 stitches in gray. You don't do both, you do one or the other. So if you choose the route of the color, you need to include the name and the floss number in your comment. So you need to say, I'm stitching in light gray, like DMC blah, blah number, light gray. And it has to have the color in the title. It has to have gray in the title. Number 12 is to stitch on a whip with a snake or some other reptile. 13 is another color, but this one is specifically color only. 11 had an option for either. This one is to use either black, so 310, or some shade of green. I only gave this option because I figured a lot of us have stuff with black. Green there's so many colors that have green. So the same thing, you'll say, I'm stitching in, DMC 310 black, and do your 100 stitches, or I'm stitching in Anchor, whatever, green, It doesn't matter. I don't care what brand you use. DMC and Anchor are the ones I'm most familiar with. Include the name and the number. Number 14 is to stitch on a whip with a place you'd like to travel to. It can be a real or a fictional place. I do not care, as long as you tell us what the place is called in your comment. So, for example, I have my Letters from Hogwarts piece. I could use that and say, I would love to travel to Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It's a fictional place, but I would like to travel there, so I could use that whip. Or you could have a stitch, I'm thinking of Sammy's postcard whip, right? And it has the little like postage stamps of all the different, are you all right? Jeez. It's got the postage stamps of all the different countries. She could easily pick one of those and be like, I would love to travel to Sydney, Australia. So, and that counts because it does have a little like icon on there. Oh my goodness, buddy. 15 is to stitch on a whip that is 4 years old. So it is 2025. It needs to be from 2021. Specifically, I want it 4 years, not 4 years or older. I want a 4-year-old whip. Good luck. And then the last prompt is to stitch on a whip that is based on a movie, which is why you could not use one that was based on a movie before, because there is very specifically a prompt for stitching on a movie here. This would be your Harry Potter, your Star Wars, your Dunes, your Wickeds, though Wicked could be argued depending on which one, because Wicked is also a play. It was a musical first. Like, you know, figure it out. Pretty self-explanatory. And that's just an example. Then the other events we have going on in Magical Stitches that I do want to touch on are the monthly bonus challenges and then the year-long challenge. So along with our monthly that will change every month depending on what book we're reading, there is a year-long challenge that is going on. They'll pause. The other monthly thing that I do want to say about the books is because it's the book of the month and then there are 3 additional ones, there will always, this year, there will be something that has to do with something in the title, and then there will be like trope kind of stuff. Find one that's a trope, a new to you author, read from your shelf, things like that. But there will always be 3 additional ones. So the minimum is 4 books, at times maybe 4.5, but there will always be 4 books to read. With those, sometimes I know that it can be tricky to get a hold of a book. So if you want to put a book on hold, I try and make the prompts available before the month. You may start reading the books of your choice 3 days before the start of the month. So for February, you may start reading your February books on January 29th. You have 3 additional days, and for every month it is like that. You will have 3 additional days before it starts. The caveat to that is you cannot go into a book or go into a month at halfway into a book, 50%. So if you pick, I want to read, like here's a great example. Where is it? Whatever. We'll use this book. Still has my hold on it. If I want to read this book for February and I start it January, but I get really invested in it. I started on January 29th and I get real invested in it. And before I know it, oops, I read more than halfway. I cannot count this as a February book because I've already read more than half of it before February even started. I am very excited to read this. This is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire-Sayens. I don't know how to say his name. I apologize. I'm very excited. And then I will probably watch the movie. I have a lot of books that are made into shows or movies this year, which is very, very interesting. Anyways, so that's the only caveat. You can start early, but if you make it more than halfway into a book, it won't count. This is also kind of a way to let you test the waters, right? If you get into a book, you're like, I actually don't want to read this. No skin off my back. You don't have to read it. Like, I'm trying to give grace period to help you find the books and get into them because I know that not everyone reads like I do. I read a lot of books. I always have books on me. I've always got an audiobook. I've always got a physical book, and that's okay. Not everyone reads like I do, and I just want to make it fair. If you're a slow reader, those 3 days give you some extra time. If you're a quick reader, hey, whatever. Maybe you just read a crap ton of books this year. And there is nothing that says that if you want to read 2 books for the same prompt, go for it. You finish the prompts and you're like, I still want to read, and this also fits this prompt, heck, go for it. Give yourself an extra challenge. Be like, I'm only going to read books that fit the Magical Stitches prompts. Don't do that. That would be, I think you would get burned out really quickly. But I'm just saying, you could do that. If you only wanted to read time travel books this month, go for it. If you only wanted to read books by new authors, authors you've never read before, go for it. It's all up to you. So I just wanted to touch on that. Next, drink break. Okay, let's talk about the year-long challenge. Okay, so the year-long challenge is something that goes the entire year of 2025. Started on January 1st. I was a couple days behind, so it started January 4th. And will go all the way through the end of the year. Anything you stitch on for this event has to stay in this event. It can only be double dipped with the bonus challenge. So monthly and year long, the regular events, they are completely separate. You cannot use those stitches interchangeably. They have to be separate. The only thing where it'd be okay for it to double dip is with the bonus monthly challenge and the yearly challenge. Those are the only 2. So just kind of keep that in mind. So for the year-long event, I am writing down every single character that we come across in the entire book series, which is also why I've only released the first 3 because I'm trying to read the books like now and get them all out there in advance, because I know some of y'all are crazy stitchers, but I can only read them as fast as I can. But as we come across a brand new character, I write it down in my little table that I have, and then it's being transferred over into the Facebook group. So do check back regularly. Things are getting updated over there. And I kind of like that. It's not for everyone, but I like it because it does kind of add flair. It gives like more of this mystery air of like, there's even more suspects, there's even more crazy characters. The whole concept that I had for this idea is that we have a large amount of characters that we meet across this series of 13 books, and they're all kind of shady in their own way. Your job is to investigate every single character, including the narrators, including our heroines, because everyone's got something to hide. So what you're going to do is gather intelligence, gather information on all of these people. So we start off with, our narrator, Lemony Snicket. And we've got Violet, Klaus, Sunny, Mr. Poe, Mr. Baudelaire, Mrs. Baudelaire, however you want to say it, Mrs. Polly Poe, Edgar Poe, Albert Poe, Justice Strauss, Count Olaf, the bald man with a very long nose, 2 white-faced women. That counts as 1. I'm not making you do them individually. The hook-handed man, the androgynous person, and the wart-faced man. Those are all the unique characters in book 1. So what you're going to do is, number 1, you have to observe them. Then you've got to make your initial contact. You got to meet them. Then you're going to learn about them. You learn their habits, their routines, their day-to-day life, right? Their schedules. And then finally, you'll discover their deepest, darkest secret. Each one of those steps in your investigation costs a different amount of stitches. To just observe them, 500 stitches. Then, to make contact, you need to do 1,000 stitches. After that, studying them, learning their habits and stuff, that's 1,500 stitches. And then finally, to discover their deepest, darkest secret, that's 2,000 stitches. This is a year-long challenge. It is difficult. I don't expect you to complete it. Or if you do, hell yeah. I expect you to do whatever you want to do and have fun. However, so there will be a total of 5,000 stitches done per character. You have to go in order. You can't jump around in your steps of investigating. You can't learn someone's secret before you've even observed them. So you will always go through the order of observing the person. Let's just stick with Justice Strauss. You will always observe Justice Strauss first, 500 stitches. Then you will meet her for 1,000 stitches. Then you'll learn her routine for 1,500. And then finally, you'll learn Justice Strauss's Darkest Secret for 2,000. You have to go in order. Now, if you want to observe every single character first, go for it. And then you want to go back and meet them. Sure, you do what feels right for you. Maybe for Justice Strauss, you want to do all 4 steps and be done with it. Maybe for Violet, you only want to observe Violet. I don't know. Pick your fancy. You can do the characters in whatever order you want. However, the steps you follow have to always be the same. You can't jump around the order of steps. You can jump around with characters. You can meet them all. You can go back through and do it all over. Like, whatever works for you, that's what you can do. As I meet more characters, I will, of course, update them into the Facebook group. But as of right now, you have all of the unique characters from books 1 through 3. And when I say unique, because if it's a repeat character, I don't expect you to learn them more than once. So you won't see Violet, Klaus, and Sunny all over again. It'll say book 1 characters, and then when it says book 2 characters and so on, those are unique characters to that book, ones we have not met before. I am including, in some cases, animals, because we have animals that are characters. We have aliases, people who are going by a different name, because that is the character they are portraying. Also, we have people that are just kind of mentioned. You'll notice we haven't actually met Mr. and Mrs. Baudelaire, but they play an important role. Their death kind of kickstarts this whole series, so they are important characters. Other are people that are mentioned casually, that maybe they'll come up later, but they are mysterious. Like we meet characters that our narrator, Lemony Snicket, mentions, his friend, Gina Sue, or Dr. Lorenz. Like, we meet these people. Like, he it's important enough for him to mention their name, so we should investigate them. And then others are just strange people, like the unnamed cab driver in book 3. Who is this cab driver? But they had a speaking section. They had a line. They actually communicated with the children in some way, so I included those as well. Drink break. At this point, I have no idea how many characters we're going to get. You're learning with me as we get deeper into this mystery. Now, the last event that you can double dip your year-long stitches with are the monthly bonus challenges. So every month, we're doing something special. Last year, I did a playlist challenge where every book that we read, I found a playlist for on Spotify, copied it down, and we had to stitch the songs. It was great. It was a lot of work typing all of that out. I really liked it. I think it was fun. However, I didn't want to do that again this year. We have done things in the past where we have watched stuff, and I really, really liked that, but I kind of wanted to add my own twist to it. And so this is what I've come up with. We're going to stitch the show. A few years ago, Netflix released a series of unfortunate events starring Neil Patrick Harris and other people, a lot of famous people. And they made the books, the entire series, into a show. So every single book has been adapted, and I think that's fantastic. And I believe every book has a 2-part episode. It seems really well done. I'm very excited to watch it. I have not watched it, but I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm also very excited because my son is reading the books with us, and he seems interested in it as well. He doesn't stitch, but he is reading, so whatever. And I was like, would you want to watch the show with me? And he's like, yeah. So we're stitching the show. Now, I've created this to be a 2-part thing, but there are different levels of difficulty. Level 1 is that you're just going to do part 1 and that's it. Level 2 is you're just doing part 2, not part 1. And level 3 is that you do both parts. So now let me explain what those parts are. I'm trying to do this as clearly as possible. It's kind of difficult. At the beginning of every month, and it is the entire month, you will be given the episodes and the episode lengths that we will watch that corresponds with our books. So for January, you've got The Bad Beginning Part 1 and Part 2, and then The Reptile Room Part 1. And then in addition, I've listed how long those episodes are in minutes. So The Bad Beginning Episode 1 is 49 minutes long. For Part 1, what you will do is you're going to watch the show. The other key part of this is let's kind of back up then. Before you watch the show, you're going to pick a whip. Now, this is the important part because you cannot switch your whips. So once you've locked in a whip, that's it. It is your whip for that episode. So you pick, we're going to sit down, we're going to watch The Bad Beginning, part 1. You pick a whip. The only time you can change your whip is if you finish it. So, for example, I'm going to pull out one of my Halloween stitch-alongs because I'm not using that for any other challenge. I'm just going to use it for this. And that's what my hint to you too is pick something that maybe you know you're not going to use for your monthly. Like set something aside that you won't put into your monthly challenges so that this way it can't get mixed up. This is its own thing. And this is also why this can get double dipped with your year-long because you've got your whip, right? I've got my year-long, I've got my Sal, I've got my Halloween Sal. Cool. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to pull up The Bad Beginning, part 1, and I'm going to take a photo. My starting photo is going to be my whip, and The Bad Beginning has got to be like in the background. I need to be able to see that you are sitting down to watch The Bad Beginning in the same photo. And then you watch the episode and you stitch, and that's it. And then at the end of that, you post your ending photo. I don't need to know how much you got done. I just need to see that you made some progress. Doesn't matter how many. Maybe you only did 2 stitches. I don't care. But you stitched and watched the show. And that is if you are doing, that is part 1. And so if you choose level 1, which is the easiest of this challenge, that's all you have to do. You're just watching TV and stitching a show. And that's it. Stitching a show, stitching on a whip and watching some shows. And that's it. Part 2 is where the length of the show comes in. Part 2 is a stitch count requirement. So it's 49 minutes. 49 times 10 is 490. You need to do 490 stitches on that whip that you chose. That is episode 1's whip. If you are a level 2, you ignore part 1. You can still watch the show, but I don't need a photo. You're just doing part number 2. So you're just doing the stitch count. You're saying, hey, I'm going to do 490 stitches on my Halloween stitch along. I need a start photo, a standard start photo, and then an ending photo when you hit your 490 stitches. And that's it. If you choose to do level 3, you are committing to doing both part 1 and part 2 for each episode. You pick your level. Let's back up. Let's go over level 3 then. So I choose level 3. That means I sit down. I've got my part 1. I take my photo of my whip with The Bad Beginning in the background. I will have 3 photos by the time I'm done. I do need to say what I'm starting at. I'm starting here. There will be a progress photo of how much I got done while I was stitching during watching the show. That's my second photo. And then the third will be my ending photo. The third will be my ending photo when I have reached the 490 stitches. I want to say your second photo for part 1 needs to show that it's the end. In the background, you need like the credits, the ending scene, something as well to show me this is where I'm at the end of this episode. I hope that makes sense. So part 1, if you're just doing part 1, photo with the show opening in the background, you stop with your show ending whip in the background. Okay. Part 2 is just numbers. Level 3, part 1, opening picture number 2 is the end of the show picture. And then your third photo is your last you have completed. I love that there's nothing, I'm not editing anything into this. You're just seeing my hands. But part number 3 photo is when you finish your stitches. I don't care what level you choose. I intentionally made it really easy. If you just want to stitch a little bit and watch a show and have fun, cool. If you're more interested, you don't want to watch a show, you've seen it, you don't have Netflix, you don't have access to it, whatever, and you just want to do the stitching requirements, cool, go for it. Level 3 is if you're like, I'm going to do it all. I want the full experiment. You got FOMO real bad. You can do whatever you want. I intentionally designed it so that there were levels of difficulty for each person to make up their mind for what works for them and what doesn't. I don't want anyone to be uncomfortable or to feel like they can't. Do what works for you. You will pick your level at the beginning of the month, and that is your level for the whole month. This is also the only challenge where I'm like, you are locked in. If you say you're doing level 3, You are doing level 3 for all of the episodes. It's not pick and choose per episode. It is for the entire thing. Your whip can change per episode, but that's it. And it's also one whip. So, but this is because it's a bonus, because this is kind of new, that's why it can be double dipped with the year long. Plus 490, you're 10 stitches away then from having observed someone. So that kind of works. Episode 2 is 1 hour and 4 minutes. So that's 64 minutes times 10 is 640, like so on and so forth. So if you do that, theoretically, you could get through a chunk of some stuff. So have fun with it. Do whatever you like within reason and follow my rules. And have fun. I think that's everything I wanted to cover. I'm pretty sure that's about it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I just want you to have fun. I'm so grateful that everyone is here and is sticking with me. I'm very excited for this year. I have a whole content calendar planned out. I'm hoping that way I can be on time this year. I'm also trying to really get a lot of it done now, so that way I'm not scrambling later on, and when I inevitably do get busy, it's ready. I just have to upload it. So thank you so much. I'm very excited for how this year is going to go, and I can't wait. Tune in next Sunday. I'm going to show you what I've been working on, and I guess some stitchy goals. I was going to go over more, but this video is long enough, so we're going to end that here. We'll talk about stitchy goals and my whips in next week's Stitchy Sunday. So thank you so much for watching. Happy watching, happy listening, happy reading, happy stitching, happy doing whatever it is that makes you happy doing. I'll see you next time. Be easy with your heart.